Do you know what, Rory? Right, you know, you sometimes look at players and you look at their face and their body language and the shoulders. Do you ever look at Marcus Rashford and think he looks content, he looks happy, he looks... you get this with players. So there's certain players that throw... Jack Grealish, right? You know Jack, just by his body language, how he feels on that. Marcus Rashford always seems to have his head face down. They got the glum look. He never seems to look happy. Never. Can we agree different than that or not?
No, I know what you mean. I mean, in terms of like analysing his body language, I don't know enough about body language to be able to make but I do know what you mean. What I do know, however, is he scored 1 goal this season. And when you think about the talent that Marcus Rashford undoubtedly has, like however highly you rate him, however highly you rank him, whatever you think his ceiling is, nobody thinks that this is acceptable. 1 goal in 15. No. He is undoubtedly on his day one of Manchester United's best players because of his link to Manchester and being Manc born and bred, and they like to sing about that. He is the hope of the Stretford end as well. So there comes an added pressure. There comes an added love, but there also comes an added pressure with that. And the fact that his form has been so lacking, I don't know how this is resolved. I don't know if you have to drop him. Do you remember last season? Actually, I think he missed a meeting and he overslept. And as a result, Erik ten Hag dropped him. They played Wolverhampton Wanderers away at Molineux. Correct. Yeah, they dropped him. They brought him on and he scored the winner. So it looked like it was at the time when Erik ten Hag had the Midas touch and he made a clever decision. Dropped Rashford to inspire him. He came on, he scored a winner. I think he had a goal disallowed that day. And the impact from the bench was exactly what ten Hag wanted. I wonder... See, I think that he could do with something like that, but the problem is you can't drop him because who do you play there? He's still, even out of form, one of Manchester United's biggest threats for a goal, isn't he?
Don't we? I feel like I have this conversation about Marcus Rashford every 18 months. It
does go in. It's cyclical, isn't it?
This is not the first time we've had this conversation about him. Now, going into the World Cup, the World Cup, believe it or not, was exactly a year ago, right? The last weekend of football was exactly a year ago. Going into that, it looked like he didn't actually start. He played well against Wales, set one up, I think, and scored. And done okay, though. Started then. That was when his form really coming back for the World Cup. You made the point, Rory. He was sensational. I mean,
England's top goal scorer, wasn't
he? He scored when he went back to Man United. I think there was a record he was almost breaking, like scoring the most goals consecutive at Old Trafford. He couldn't stop scoring, the boy. But I just wonder whether there's because if you go back 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, when he signed that bumper deal, there was talk about him going to PSG. Yeah. Maybe leaving, moving on. And this is not the first time we've had the conversation about him.
And do you know what we're doing as well? We're talking about Marcus Rashford now in a way that we haven't before. So we're talking about him off the field antics. For example, I don't know if you saw, but he got involved in a Twitter spat conversation with Mark Goldbridge.
I did see it.
Did you see that?
I saw him on Twitter about something about... It was with a Manchester United podcast or something like that.
The guy's name is Mark Goldbridge.
Right, I know. Yes,
So Mark had put out a thumbnail which suggested that Marcus Rashford may leave Manchester United. Yeah. I don't think it's a ridiculous conversation. I don't think it's a ridiculous thing to even suggest.
He took umbrage, didn't he?
He went out of his way to reply to Mark. And what you do there, I think it's called the Streisand effect. I think Barbara Streisand once had a series of photos that she didn't want to be seen. And as a result...
It's called the Streisand. Are you telling me Marcus Rashford is using the Streisand effect?
It's the Streisand effect. I think that's what it's called. I think, if I remember rightly here, and obviously I have no idea. This could be completely wrong,
Imagine you've made that up.
But I promise I haven't. Well, maybe I have, but I think it's called the Streisand effect, right? Basically, Barbara Streisand, there were some photographs out there of her that she didn't want to be seen.
What type of photos?
Photos that she decided shouldn't be seen.
What, photos of what?
Of her doing what I don't know, wearing what I don't know, but because weirdly the Streisand effect hasn't worked on me. But what the Streisand effect means is Streisand didn't want these photos to be seen, so went out of her way to get it banned and put a block on them. And as a result, all she did was pump oxygen into them, and everybody has therefore seen these pictures.
Right, okay.
So Mark Goldbridge has a huge following. He's one of the most successful and best YouTubers in the country, but he has put out a video or a question about Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford has Streisand affected it because he has replied to Mark and therefore given it this oxygen that we are now discussing.
Who's the Streisand here, Rashford or Mark?
In this exact example, Marcus Rashford is Barbara Streisand.
Is Barbara Streisand?
It's Barbara Streisand. Yes. So exactly, Barbara Streisand. There we go. So basically, it's just another example of us talking about Marcus Rashford in a way that isn't talking about his goals for Manchester United. Yeah. We've never really known him interact with YouTubers before.
Right.
We've never. I think he's broken up with his missus. I've never really known him in that kind of conversation before. I've never really had that kind of conversation around Marcus Rashford.
Do we need, because also there's a lot. We watch footballers through, a very small window. We think we know them. We only watch them on TV. We see them on social media. We see them being interviewed. No, we don't really know them. We think we do, but we don't really know them. Right? And then, of course, we find out a little bit more about them and Marcus, what he did throughout and the COVID times as well, when he made such strides against the goal. I just wonder whether you look at the situation that he's found himself in now. You don't know how mentally strong some of these boys are. No, because he's now the highest paid player at Man United, I believe, after
Varane, Casemiro, I imagine, are on good money.
And those boys there. And I just wonder whether, because he is now that young, homegrown player, the pressure for him to deliver, it feels...
No, I think the pressure's huge, but the other thing I would say with regard to Rashford's form, of course, as a footballer, and I imagine that you would sort of, this will chime with you as a former pro, you have to take responsibility for your own form, but the culture of the club is so weird. So, for example, Mason Mount is a player that broke my heart and a player that I no longer love. But there's no two ways about it. He's a very good footballer. And you look at the way that he's playing for Manchester United and he's just shadow of his former self. So you've got Mason Mount, who on his day was one of the best players to play for the Chelsea team that won the European Cup. He was integral to Chelsea winning the European Cup. He looks a shadow of his former self. You've got Marcus Rashford, currently, looks a shadow of his former self. You've got Casemiro, currently, looks a shadow of his former self. You've got Varane. There are so many players at Manchester United.
Here's what you're saying. Get rid of Ten Hag. Because that's basically what you're saying now, isn't it?
Whether I'm saying get rid of Ten Hag is not... It's neither here nor there what I'm saying. I think that it may be the only solution. I do feel like it's looking that way, that it's now the only solution. Like Manchester United losing in Copenhagen. That just isn't the Manchester United that we know, is it? The standards of Manchester United. No. And then the way that it's being positioned. I've got Manchester United fans telling me, they didn't lose a Champions League game at home last season. They didn't win any either, by the way. They're not saying that. They didn't win any. But they didn't lose any Champions League games at home last season. It's a very difficult place to go and win. You think Manchester United, a great club who demand brilliance from top to bottom. Erik Ten Hag, he's lost now. This season he's lost more games than he's won. I just don't see how, whether it's right that he goes or not, whether a new manager could do a better job. I almost don't think it's relevant anymore because I can't see this crop of players playing for him ever again.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.